9 game ideas, 6 pitches, 3 playable demos, 1 full game. That is the basis of Project Nonagon. Now, I've already covered stage 1 of the project in the previous devlog, so if you stumbled upon this video randomly, I'd recommend watching that before this one, otherwise it won't make as much sense. Otherwise, welcome to stage 2. Stage 2 consists of 6 meeting level pitches for the 6 surviving games of the project. These pitches would consist of more nuanced and thought out mechanics and ideas regarding each game, with each one aiming to be later developed into a playable demo. For these pitches, I decided to revamp the game covers out of the disgusting AI generation, gave them storefront-like descriptions and like other stuff, I guess. I obviously got my excellent group of stakeholders to partake and listen to me rant about these ideas for 2 hours, which may have been a mistake as they got too into their roles.
Vertical descent.
No,
you can say it out loud.
No. Roleplay, come on, you carry on.
What? Hold on, I've got a good question. Yeah. Is there licensing opportunities for this?
What the fuck?
No, shut up.
Figures, plushies.
Yes,
it's too
I'm trying to get my revenue from somewhere else.
It's too generic to make that sort of shit. If you want that sort of shit, you need to make unique things.
Yo, anyway, you gonna do like VR compatibility?
No. Said some things that I cannot reveal, and overall were, to say the least, chaotic.
This is when let go, bro.
For example, for here for a charge up beam.
Obviously not fucking shooting over and letting it go. Like, sometimes I just think like, do you have any fucking brain cells? Like, honestly, I'm shocked. We've started listening. It's about 10 minutes of listening to this explanation, and not a single word has gone through your thick fucking skull. It's actually shocking. Actually, watching this thing is pissing me off. How have you been doing?
No, because it launches them up, so how are you shooting? Okay.
But for the sake of the devlog, I'm going to cut it down quite a bit into a more digestible video lasting only... Holy shit, okay. Let's begin with the first game, that being The Core. A fast-paced, chaotic FPS set in a technological utopia. Why use bullets and magazines when all your gun needs is an infinite energy core? Sentry turrets, remote explosives, powerful blasts, your new way of shooting can do anything you need it to. If this would develop into a demo, it would be set at the beginning of the game's supposed campaign, with the protagonist breaking into this illustrious corporation that holds this core of infinite energy. After stealing it, you would fight your way out of the corporation, fighting the security division and going up against the clients that hired you to steal the core amongst the slums of the city that are still undergoing a technological utopian makeover. The main gameplay loop would consist of 4 core principles, first being that you don't reload the magazine of the guns, rather you toss the guns away themselves, using the infinite energy core as the consistent factor, meaning that the simple act of reloading turns into a management of durability and even abilities due to the leftover energy remaining in the tossed weapon. The second is that this is a movement shooter, so you zoom around and shoot stuff. The third are the weapons for this game. I don't want to be limited to the standard FPS guns like a shotgun, SMG or assault rifle, but instead heavily play around with the idea that these are instruments of mass destruction powered by infinite energy. But obviously this is a video game, so the first few weapons need to be normal-ish. So the guns I've come up with would consist of the Star Seeker, a standard revolver with armor-piercing charged-up plasma beams, the Helio Surge, a Gatling gun that slowly transforms into a flamethrower and when let go, releases blasts out of the gun, and finally the Thunder Rolls, roller skates attached to a lightning gauntlet. The fourth and final element of the game was to have modules that would adjust the characteristics of the weapons to fit a different playstyle, so the Bulldozer module would make the player charge forward with their movement ability and make the gun like the Star Seeker function more like a hand cannon, while the Blitz would give the player a dash instead and have the Star Seeker function like a Fanda Hammer revolver. I would like to play around with the idea of a third module that would focus on a parry for its movement and make the guns more nuanced, but for the sake of the demo I've restricted it to just the Bulldozer and Blitz. My thought process with the boss fights, not just for the core but for every game afterwards, is that they're there to test the player on all the mechanics introduced up to that point, with multiple phases that illustrate how a future weapon or mechanic would work, at least from the boss's perspective. For example, the Helio Surge from earlier would be attained and demonstrated by the first boss. A Additionally, phase changes would be accompanied by new moves, visual appearances, and changes in the ongoing soundtrack. Level design wise, I want the game to cycle between 4 movement segments, 4 combat, bullet hell segments, and a hybrid between the two, with the first area being in the corporation's headquarters, divided by each of the scientific branches like the biology division, mechanical division, etc., while the second area would be a vertical descent down into the slums. Finally, my main influences for these games would be Ultra Kill and Doom Eternal, with visual influences being games like Bomb Rush Cyberpunk, Ultimate Spider-Man Okami, and Hi-Fi Rush for its cel-shaded toon outlined look, and Stray, Cyberpunk 2077, and Ghost Runner for its neon-lit futuristic aesthetics. In terms of stakeholder participation, I got some good ideas out of it that I'm likely to include.
I don't think you should have a backup one, because I think it's more interesting if you ditch one, you have to go get another one, so you don't have a backup.
Yeah,
I think that's more fun. So it forces you to be more dynamic with it.
I don't want to beat that guy, but like in Super Hot, how when you lose a gun and you use the environment and stuff, you just pick up shit you're breaks about. I think you should do that. Because then once it breaks, you actually have to rely on the environment around you to like deal with it and get to your next weapon. I think that'd be good.
And some good old classic rage baiting.
Yeah.
Will there be a battle pass?
I already asked that question actually.
Did you?
Okay. But with 1 out of 6 pitches now done, it's time for Brothers by Machine. Two brothers are forced to embark on a do-or-die mission by those who gave them biotechnological makeovers. In a co-op adventure, the siblings will be pushing their relationship to the extremes in this hack-and-slash cover shooter hybrid. If this would develop into a demo, it would be set in the post-intro of the campaign, with the brothers seeking out the person who assassinated the informative. Set within a world where MK Ultra experiments have paved the way forward for humanity with discoveries in technology, medicine and more, the ethics behind procedures like them are left unquestioned. For gameplay, the two brothers will be separated by an action subgenre. The younger brother would have this hack-and-slash playstyle that relies on mix-ups between light and heavy attacks, and a combo meter to allow you to use special moves, abilities, self-heal and more. Meanwhile, the older brother would have this cover shooter playstyle with an adrenaline meter bar that increases when you deal or take damage, equally allowing for the special moves, abilities, a self-heal and more. Both would also have differing weapons, like the younger brother having the ace up the sleeve, a metallic whip with rotating metal plates, while the older brother would have something like the Nemesis, a laser-aimed rocket salvo in the shape of a sniper rifle. Despite having different playstyles, the idea is that the brothers interact with each other dynamically. For example, where the younger brother destroys a pillar in combat, that pillar would then become cover for the older brother, with other combat moments and puzzles feeding off of this ideology. The way they upgrade would further expand upon this, as you could find physical upgrades for the older brother, like a new ammo type. By earning proficiency through upgrades used, the younger brother would unlock their own new moves as a way of learning from the older sibling. As for the enemy types, I really wanted to hone in on this idea of advanced MK Ultra experiments, and so each type would be tailored towards it, from the freshies being volunteers and soldiers in the process of extreme shock therapy, functioning like an explosive enemy, or the daywalkers being hypnotized gunmen who keep going even after receiving fatal wounds. Thematically, I want the game's story to delve into this idea of how far is too far, with the MK Ultra experiments acting as a backdrop to the brothers bickering and opposing ideas on the world they inhabit. Finally, my main influences for the gameplay would be It Takes Two for the co-op component, Devil May Cry 5 and Gears of War 2 for the brothers' playstyles, and the neo-noir monochromatic coloring originating from the Saboteur and Sin City. For the stakeholders, they were more or less helpful here as well.
I just think you should do Fortnite too. I've really been thinking about this, like we've really been looking at all this shit and Fortnite 2's on the table and no one's made it yet and now we're doing all this bullshit.
Moving on to the horror games, we first had Another World. Unaware of where or how you ended up in this small neighborhood, there's this presence afoot. You could leave easily, but you're too compelled to find out the truth. There are creatures that need putting down, puzzles that need solving, and mysteries to unfold. For this game, the idea is to have this neighborhood act as a glimpse into the inhabitants' phobias and monsterify them after the protagonist tried to contact the Lovecraftian world and melded them together. The full game would have you repeat this neighborhood several times, each with massive variations, but for the demo, you'll only encounter the first run. Gameplay wise, this is a love letter to the PS1 era of survival horrors. So you got the classic combat with shit aim and low durability melee, an inventory management system, and puzzles that were constructed by Dr. Zeus himself. But I also wanted to add in a twist that would focus on this phobia aspect, with there being a fear meter. Discovering an enemy or taking damage would increase this meter, and once full, you would be transported into a new dimension that would amplify a randomly selected phobia. And if you survive this dimension's tasks, you'll come back to the real world with this new phobia being personified in it with you, creating new enemy encounters. For the enemies, the idea is to have them be a disturbing combination between Lovecraftian horror and a selected phobia with some connection to the protagonist. There obviously would also be a stalker or juggernaut enemy, which would hunt the player with the unkillable nature and would act as a precedent to any future boss fight the player might face. For the level design, the idea is to have the neighborhood reach a liminal feeling of uncomfortable. Tight corners, locked doors, and occasionally ethereal alterations to points of interest that you would grow to be familiar with. Games like Resident Evil 3 Nemesis, Silent Hill 1 and 2, and more would obviously act as my primary influences, but for the Lovecraftian side of things, I would be heavily looking into Bloodborne. The ideas I got from the stakeholders were interesting.
Also, I have another
so rude.
suggestion for another phobia. So one of the phobias should be, I don't know the actual term for it, but like a fear of like having a job, right? I think for one of them, it should be...
With some thoughtful questions, I guess.
Yeah. Is the game gonna be scary?
With these games, you thought about like trophies.
Next up was the other horror game, and seemingly the favourite amongst the stakeholders, Sinner. Lost, confused, hurt. It's just you and this architectural abomination, but there might be something else here as well. Point and click your way out, just make sure to not let it find you. Named way before the Michael B. Jordan and Haley Steinfeld masterpiece came out, the game would take place within a manor that was under construction as the noble wanted to create a mini city for the child before the kid ended up kidnapped and presumably dead. The demo would start once the player already finds themselves in this manor, and the only available sins are lust, pride, and wrath. What I mean by this is that the creature that is trapped in there with you will have its behavior correlate to one of the 7 deadly sins. With lust, the longer it watches you, the more it will start approaching you, coming from behind you, forcing you to stop moving, or else. With pride, the less time you have your mouse hovered over it, the angrier it would become before triggering wrath, which triggers the creature's hunting mode where it would actively seek the player to end them. There will be many different types of puzzle paths the player will be able to take within the manor, with each having that backtracking nature of survival horror games and the bizarrity of Grim Fandango, though I will make sure they actually make sense. Each puzzle path and location of the manor would force the creature into a different behavior. What this means is that since the manor is plenty of contradicting building types combined together in a Frankenstein manner, there would be rooms like the school classrooms that would make the creature trigger envy or pride, while rooms like the medical office would trigger lust and greed, with each room having a narrative correlation to do with the child's trauma and background behind what this manor is supposed to be. Each room would have these puzzles in them, with the narrative reasoning being that they were there to entertain the now lost child. But the father would become too deranged and obsessively focused on these puzzles after the disappearance, with each sin representing the manor story of how the father fetishized these puzzles. For influences, I had the pixelated and religious horror of Faith the Unholy Trinity and the classic point and click of Clock Tower. Visually, the game would lean towards a blend of the rugged pixel art of Faith, with some inspiration also coming from World of Horror. Reaching the final parts of the pictures, we only had the RPG games left, with the first being Time Out. Time is of the essence, quite literally. You are the timeline anomaly as you hop between eras of your ancestors on borrowed time, using your ticking seconds as a weapon to get through powerful foes in this top-down hack-and-slash roguelite. For this game, I had a lot of going back on the ideas I initially wanted to do. For example, when making the pitch, the idea was to have the game thrive off of this revenge story, but fast forwarding to the presentation of it, I decided to go back on my word on it, as it just doesn't sound interesting enough to do. While the main narrative idea was still up for debate, the demo would begin with the player already being in a nexus, a central hub that lets you access other levels and upgrade yourself in the meantime. Each level would act as a new era for the player to explore, with the demo giving you access to the Witchcraft era, the Kamakura Samurai period, and the Golden Age of the Mafia, with your supposed ancestors from these eras teaching you the way of whatever they've mastered. For example, the Witchcraft Witchcraft era would give you access to magical and herb related abilities that focus on debuffing and buffing, while the Samurai period would teach you advanced melee combat like parrying, and the Mafia age would teach you advanced range combat like deflections. Each level would also have a different mechanical playstyle unique to them. For example, the Witchcraft era would have the optional Witch Hunter contracts you could do alongside the main path, while the Samurai would switch to a side-scroller perspective for certain duels. As for the main mechanic of the game, each level must be completed in its entirety within a limited time frame. However, you can trade in time from your countdown as a temporary level long upgrade, like 10 seconds for +1 strength, or 20 seconds for an additional dash. In these levels would also be these boons, where you can increase your countdown at the cost of a debuff or decrease it at the cost of a buff, such as continuous damage over time in exchange for +5 seconds per enemy kill, or double movement speed, but every hit you take is -10 seconds. The roguelite side of things would stem from how you could sell the leftover time from these levels and any found sand chunks to Further Time, who is a vendor in the Nexus. From them you could buy permanent upgrades, new weapons and more. As for the combat, you could do all the expected stuff like light and heavy attacks, dodging, parrying, blocking, shooting and more, with the idea being that you could tie any ability to each action. The way the abilities would work here is that there is an equilibrium bar where any gain on the countdown, such as having a debuff or picking up a time boost, decreases the amount in the bar, but any loss on the countdown, spending it on upgrades or death, increases the amount, with the bar acting as a fuel for your abilities. Finally, the influences here are quite different. While games like Hades for its top-down combat or Turn Up Boy Robs the Bank for its time-based rogueliteness would play a role here, my main influence is actually my A-level computer science project of the same ideas, which my go-to teacher so kindly sent me my documentation and backup code files for. In other words, this game is a revival of this project. Now, for the final game, we had Tech Poor. Hate brews in the heart of every soul in these lands. A crumbling manor society, cybernetic revolutions, an ever-breeding cesspool of criminals, and you are at the center of it all. Magic or cyberware, swords or peace, find your reason at any cost. In the world of Techpoor, a cyberpunk medieval fantasy fusion, mana flows through nearly everybody, with some choosing to use it to indulge in the magical arts, some utilize it as a fuel for cybernetics, and others simply refuse the impurity of itself. The ideas for this game would be quite large scale, with the potential of a full open world with worldwide environmental changes based on story factors, but that can't be fully demonstrated within a demo. As such, while other demos give you a slice on a silver platter with their full game being a chance for seconds, Techpoor would be the equivalent of showing the ingredients that would be used for cooking the full course meal, with things like combat and world building being as such. With that, demo would be contained within the first act of the game, taking place within one of the major cities, compacted to follow only a couple of side quests, such as helping move some refugees or protecting a magic user from being stoned, and a major side quest line where you track down the town's notorious serial killer. The main attraction for this RPG would be its three disciplines that are represented via the world, story and gameplay. Cyberware, a recent innovation, has a split society. Some rely on it to survive, others seek full cyber perfection, and some are unwillingly augmented. In gameplay, players can fully customize the bodies with cybernetics like grappling wires, kinetic armor, and integrated weapons, tailoring the enhancements to suit diverse combat and survival strategies. The Manor world, long shunned for its impure link to the conceptual world, home to ideas like chaos and order, faces internal conflict from differing beliefs and malevolent users. Gameplay centers on learning and combining magic from various schools and districts, offering diverse spellcasting styles shaped by one's faith and magical alignment. The mercenaries, or pure, reject cyberware and mana, claiming moral superiority. Ironically, they survive through criminal acts like assassination and trafficking, exposing the world's hypocrisy. Despite disdain, society relies on cybernetic labor and conceptual power. The gameplay emphasizes weapon combat and martial skill, offering the fastest path to cross-discipline hybrid builds for versatile playstyles. Techpoor is a Souls-like game where success comes from skill, not damage scaling. Players lose two currencies on death: gold, which is used in shops, and overflown mana, which is used for upgrades. Dying with excess mana spawns the Phoenix Spirit, a growing threat guarding it with similar interest functionality as Mr. Shakedown from Yakuza 0. Dying with too many cybernetics risks scavengers stealing gear and selling it to nearby black markets, while other repeated deaths trigger a bounty, marking you as a mythical undying target. Influences here would stem from Witcher 3 and Cyberpunk 2077 for the setting and themes, and Bloodborne and Sekiro for the combat. Alright, 6 20-minute game pitches cut down to however long this video is. Despite the occasional brain-dead heckling ad presenting these to the stakeholders, they actually had solid suggestions for stuff that I felt undecided upon. Concluding these pitches, I had them vote for which 3 they wanted to see progress. Well, before I restricted it to 1 game per genre, I did mention that if there's a genre that had much better ideas than the others, I don't mind if they choose multiple within the same genre. With that, the games progressing to the next stage were The Core, Another World, and Sinner. While Techpool was 1 vote away from getting through, and there was a lot of debating on whether The Core should be replaced by Brothers by Machine, this was ultimately the result. Now, this video is already too long for my attention span to keep going, so I guess it's time for me to start working on the next stage.